On the Definitely Bored Oranges channel, there are a lot of things I can't promise, like a consistent upload schedule, good editing, or some other third thing. But the one thing I can promise you is unbridled autism. If you've been around for the newer, better videos, then you'll know my biggest videos and hyperfixations aside from JoJo's, the Housewife series, and all of these is Undertale, and now analog horror. The issue I was having was deciding which out of the two I would make a video on. So I thought, why not both? The Ebbot Tapes takes the basic premise and characters of Undertale and treats them like real people with real documented events. And to be honest, I'm kinda surprised this hasn't been done yet. In my opinion, Undertale has the perfect world to receive the analog horrification. The only concern I have is whether the pretty tame world of Undertale would suit how dark these analog horrors really get. Oh. Okay. I'm Bored Oranges, and this is the Undertale analog horror. If you've played Undertale, the Ebbot Tapes starts in a pretty similar way. The legend of the mountain and how anyone who falls down there fails to return. This so-called monster war and our first deviation in the timeline. Whereas Undertale creates intrigue by having the character we play as fall down in the intro, something else happens. I know the video is only 2 minutes long, but it's quite rare I'm able to freely talk about this stuff without being laughed out of church. So here's the many things I already took note of. With how many analog horrors I've been watching recently, I was worried about the use of exposition. It's really easy to do poorly. But in this video, it was used in a very interesting way. By being so faithful to the source material, it makes the ending hit so much harder when you realize, wait, this didn't happen in the original. And if you've played Undertale, you're now wondering what could have caused this change. Is it because of in-universe factors like events changing? Maybe Toriel and Asriel don't exist? Or are we seeing a different take on how these characters would behave if they were trapped in a hole for centuries? In the first video, we're told how people have started to go missing near the hole, leading to the underground. And this is seen as the absolute worst case scenario. If monsters are still down there after such a long time, it could be a possibility that they won't be so friendly towards us humans. Or maybe these monsters changed over the time they lived in the underground to more primal behavior. Words that didn't hold too much meaning to me when I first heard them. But the longer this series went on, the more this theory echoed in my head. So many ideas were bouncing around in my brain before I even got to the second video. Speaking of, the second video starts with my favorite trend in analog horror. 2 images of characters while a conversation happens. This tends to have my favorite scenes, and this video didn't disappoint either. After another disappearance, the police are left with no choice but to send a pair of cavers down to Mount Ebbot to investigate. We're only like 12 seconds in, and there are already so much I've noticed. Despite the common belief amongst humanity being that the Mount Ebbot monsters were nothing but a fairy tale, the police are doing their absolute best to keep any info gathered today a secret. Huh? This is a gate. Not just, you know, a hole or something, but an actual gate. Like man-made. There are pillars and some strange symbols on top of it. The architecture looks ancient. Officer Connor? Do you remember the whole history about monsters inside Mount Ebbot? It could be possible that they are down there, but you need to keep moving deeper into the mountain. Both of these characters already established that there was a slim chance someone, yet alone a child, could survive a 1,000-foot fall. Even if they did, there's no way they could have built these structures and had them age in such a short time. So when an honestly pretty reasonable idea is brought up, Officer Connor is quick to remind Scott that they need to find those kids and go deeper. Here's my theory for what this journey down the mountain was actually for. I think the police knew that these two probably aren't going to make it, and are instead using them to recon the underground. It's been a few centuries since they last saw the monsters. So let's see how they're doing, and if that theory at the start was even correct. What's really interesting about this video are the different perspectives we receive on familiar locations, like the entrance to the ruins, and a few of the hallways. What's important to note here is that there is no mention of Flowey. I don't want to immediately throw out his existence, since he could have just fucked with time to avoid our cavers, but that's just something I made note of. Hell, a lot of the people we normally meet in the ruins aren't here. Flowey should be jumping at the opportunity to absorb 2 whole human souls. All of the monsters down here should be, since that would be more than enough souls for them to finally escape. More importantly, where is Toriel? You know, one of the nicest characters we meet throughout the whole game? The person who locked themselves in the ruins. Everyone else I could excuse. Maybe they were sick. Not Toriel though. Maybe that's why the ruins are in the state that they're in. Something I instantly noticed because I'm so smart is how dark a lot of these pictures are. This is in complete contrast to how colorful and populated this place normally is. Especially Toriel's house. Has everyone died? Maybe the ruins are even more abandoned than normal. We should check up on how Scott is doing. The world of Undertale is vast, and it's really hard to portray that because of Undertale's limitations. This video actually visualizes the scale of the underground really well until... Something I purposely left out because I wanted to increase the drama of this video is that in Scott's final moments, he says something that really caught my attention. He said that his partner was being eaten. Now, as someone who's read all of the dialogue boxes in Undertale, I know that monster food is just pure energy. And outside of one case, humans weren't really considered a delicacy down there. So what's with the sudden change? The next video continues this trend by having us get a first-person perspective of Waterfall. Once again, the top-down perspective has been converted into a more realistic look, while still being faithful. Anyway, whoever this person is stopped by Shiren. I think a comment under the video is exactly how I feel. Like, imagine getting through Toriel, Papyrus, surviving the encounter with Undyne, and then you get murked by Shiren. While I was writing, I realized the next 2 videos I planned on talking about had the word outdated next to them in big bold letters. So that probably meant I shouldn't talk about them. Before having this realization though, I already wrote the whole section. So for the sake of pacing, I cut it and put it on my Patreon. Give me money. Returning to the canon part of this journey, we got fed that good old monster propaganda. Not really, but this is a pretty large history lesson, and one that I originally thought was meaningless. I was wrong, but let's unpack why. The human-monster war set the monsters back centuries. They now had to adapt to their new circumstances, creating a capital city right next to the barrier, before venturing off to find new land to better help monsters reliant on certain elements. They built the best possible outcome out of being trapped in a very large cave, but people wanted more, and thus the core was built. This would act as the underground's main source of food, electricity, magic, just about everything a person could need could be handled by the core. So monster society began advancing at an even quicker rate. This truly turned the underground into a real home for these monsters. The core acting as proof that monsters have room to evolve, and also just helping people out by making their lives just a little bit easier. To be honest, I was a bit distracted during this section. I was paying attention to the person telling us all of this information. Asgore, maybe Sans. Of course, this could just be some random no-name person who was just a bit of a nerd for his civilization's lore. Until the end, the speaker goes on about the technological advancements allowed by the core before it slowly sets on fire. The description of the video was in Wingdings, and by translating them with my internal knowledge of the font, I received this. I know you must have a lot of questions, like where are you and who are these creatures? But trust me, the deeper you will go, the more answers you will get. As for now, I'll leave you this tape as it tells quite small but important parts of the whole story. This tape is 200 years old and was damaged after so much time had passed. But I fixed it a little for you to at least understand what it shows and tells. With all of these pieces being handed to us, that only leaves one possible person. W.D. I can also now explain why this went from arse to amazing to me. I thought this exposition was JJK levels of unnecessary explanation, but the purpose was actually to prop up the core as this savior. Things will be fine as long as we have the core. It's allowed us to advance so much, and then having it set on fire right after is fucking genius. We basically watch the monster's one and only hope melt away on screen. It's not perfect. This also allows me to talk about a slight issue with this part of the story. I like the fact that we are being given this lore. The issue I have is how it's delivered, I guess.
Thanks to the core, it is possible to live in every part of the underground without worrying about anything. The core spreads such things as food and electricity through the entire underground, making the life of our kind easier.
It stops feeling like a character is telling me this, and more like the author is telling me to stick around and keep digging. Come on, keep digging. Which, unfortunately, makes for a perfect transition into the next episode. I praised the way exposition was used in the first video, but now it's back to the author speaking to the audience instead of two characters having a conversation.
Around 85% of the buildings in all of the underground, including the two capital cities, have been suffering from the electricity loss. Since it is heavily limited and is only used in some of the busiest and most important parts of the two capitals.
Once you've moved past that though, you get this really uncomfortable scene between Asgore and Toriel as they figure out what they're going to do after the core had a meltdown. Hundreds of monsters have lost their homes and are now starving. It's even affected Toriel, who had been eating less just to make sure their children are fully fed.
Asgore, do you really not understand the whole situation? Are you really that ignorant and naive? What about the electricity? Without it, you can't make anything nowadays. There have been reports of monsters suffering from famine in the most distant parts of the underground because not only they don't have any connections with the core, but also they are suffering from the loss of electricity. They are starving. The monsters are starving. And I am trying to come up with any idea on how to fix all of this, which is weird. Since you are the ruler of the underground, you should be the one thinking about how to fix that.
Asgore seems way in over his head during all of this. He is unable to balance being a king, a husband, and a father during this disaster. He's trying, but things are only getting worse. The casualties skyrocket to 10,000. This single incident could set the underground back hundreds, no, thousands of years. At this point, everyone in the underground is trying their best to find a way out of this. Royal scientists, random civilians, hell, I'm sure the kids in the royal family are At this time, Kara would succumb to an illness that would take their life a week later. The royal family begin to mourn. Asgore isn't given much time as he still has other duties he must attend to. But Toriel? During all of this chaos, only Toriel seemed to truly understand the severity of the situation. The only one who was doing anything. And now her kingdom is in ruin. All of the progress her forefathers have made has been undone. And now one of the children she cared for so much has been taken away too. I wouldn't blame anyone for going mad at this point. Toriel ends up eating Asriel after the hunger gets too much for her. Everyone in the underground is horrified by this outcome, and she is sent away to the ruins by Asgore. There are a few things that are amazing about this twist. Firstly, Asgore and Alphys managed to figure out a solution to fix the core. Things were going to get better. Unfortunately, due to Toriel being so isolated while this situation was being formed, she sunk deeper and deeper into despair, and now she can't go back. Even if she is forgiven or allowed back into society, there is no way a person could look past that. Sure, you can fake a smile around them, but the thought that this person ate their fucking child would always be there. Secondly, the first video actually uses the viewer's familiarity with Undertale to trick you here. You would assume it would be Asgore who lost his mind and became a true monster, but that wasn't the case at all. We were so focused on Asgore, we forgot about Toriel, just like everyone else did in Universe. That is an incredible piece of writing there, having the viewer's negligence also play into Toriel's madness. Holy moly. And it only gets better. The monster national anthem playing as we're told what happened to Asgore is soul-crushing in the best of ways. I do have some problems though. I swear to God, I'm not saying this because everything needs to have problems. Again, I really like this series. I kinda just have an issue with Toriel's Shakespearean monologue about her insanity. I've been avoiding talking about it where possible, but this was really bad and really took me out of it. This is definitely a personal thing. But when characters go into these monologues about their emotional states because the scenes we were shown don't give the viewers enough context, it really bothers me. It happens in Code Geass all the time, and it's even worse there. Oh, also, you should watch Code Geass if you haven't, by the way. Like, it's so good. I feel like I've gotten a bit lost here. Going into the final video of this series, I want to point out that Asgore managed to carry the kingdom out of this moment of despair, giving them a hopeful speech that had reignited their determination to see the sun again. We cut to another explanation of the core, finding out that everything is moved via a series of tubes. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but having this explanation be done by a robot, an entity who doesn't care and relays all of the info it has with a flat delivery, is now explaining how the core works instead of our excited scientists from before. The core is no longer this brand new hope for monster kind. It's the status quo, and is being treated like that. All of the hope that monsters had is now gone. Rewinding to before the core's meltdown, we get details regarding two of the royal scientists, Dr. Sparkle and Dr. Fergus, and their work on the Underground's latest creation to destroy the barrier, the Spear of Justice. The two talk about their hopes for this plan, that even if it fails, they will still be talked about in monster history books for generations. The knowledge we now know about the Underground and where everything is placed is very important for this plan to work, because their idea is launching a fucking railgun at the barrier. It's a lot more complicated than that, obviously. The scientists are using the containers in the core along with a series of tubes going through the king's castle, located at the capital where the barrier is. And then they're gonna shoot it with a railgun. See, it would be nice if that's what happened, but unfortunately an error occurred, and now 3 of the containers used to power the railgun were released inside the core. I mean, this is still fine, right? They have 10 whole minutes to shut down the core. The shutdown button isn't working. Dr. Sparkles comes to the right conclusion that he and Fergus aren't enough to fix this issue, but it was far too late. Now we see the government's original reaction to this. Alphys running to tell Asgore what happened. The theory about him being way in over his head is even more true here, with him having absolutely no idea what to do in this situation. He's outright panicking as things get even worse.
You don't look so good.
The core, it exploded. It's on fire.
Excuse me?
The people of Hotland don't have enough water in their region to put out the fire. They require water from neighboring waterfall region. Your Majesty, please allow them to get water from there. Your Majesty.
Oh, it's nothing, really. About the water. Why do they need the water so much that they require more water from another region? I'm sure they'll be fine and the fire will be put out easily.
But, Your Majesty.
I answered your requests. You're dismissed.
This is also where Gaster comes in to give his take on everything. Of course, the first thing that crossed my mind once reading this was fucking pronoun! It was also a mindset I disagree with pretty strongly. If monsters stayed in the underground before the core, they would have adapted to their circumstances, sure, but you can't really call that living, can you? Being forced to adapt or die in a shitty little hole that you didn't even want to be in. What's fair about that? It's easy to say that when you aren't directly involved in that suffering. We also got Asgore's side of Toriel's madness. What was once seen as Toriel being forced to starve herself turned out to be an actual choice on her end, protesting the fact that some monsters were going hungry by not eating herself. We get the aftermath of Toriel eating Asriel as well. We know that Toriel was hidden away in the ruins for what she did, but Asgore had become a shell of himself, saying that he needed to get far away from here. Gaster said something else that I wanted to talk about now. If everything went exactly as planned, they would have still ended up in the same situation. There is some dramatic irony at play here as well. We, the viewers, know that this was inescapable the second they chose to use the railgun to break the barrier, but the characters don't. For them, they're probably convinced that if nothing went wrong that day, then they would have been free. That would have made everyone sink even further into despair as well. Everyone has been brought to their limits. There's no royal family, no food, no electricity, no joy, no magic, nothing. But a race of people who are slowly getting more and more hungry and fed up with their situation. A revolution was in order. My voice. Undyne tried to make something of this situation, attempting to overthrow the remaining monarchy, and surely that'd be easy, right? With Asgore in his current state, Undyne was destroyed, forcing her entire army to retreat, so all of the underground was left with more casualties. The capital city now covered in dust. We cut to Metaton as he gently opens the door. I can't show this on YouTube, so we're gonna pretend it's a Bocce the Rock clip here. What else is there left to cover? Wow, that's depressing. Honestly, I'm at a loss for words here. So let's start with my overall opinion on this. I like this. I think it's evident that I was pleasantly surprised by choices made in this series. A lot of the things I had become cynical and jaded towards were mostly used well. The beginning exposition doesn't contradict later events. It doesn't leave me scratching my head. It mostly felt necessary and, at its best, could be used to show how a population can go from happy and hopeful to trapped in a loop of despair. The characters' reactions to all of these events is also natural. Of course, things happened differently in OG Undertale, and those actions led to a much happier ending. But the changes made to the characters and events in the Mount Ebbot Tapes also feels natural. Like their decisions the character would actually make, which, yes, is something worthy of praise to me. I'm truly damaged. I got to hit that hating quota though. Before I say any of this, I need to point out that the creator of this, Dr. Flying Fish, is a relatively new creator. From my understanding, this is their first time publishing something like this, so a lot of the things I'm gonna say here could be easily ironed out with experience or a larger team working on this. I've spoken about the exposition in certain areas feeling more like the writer filling in the audience instead of a person speaking to another person. I already spoke about the Toriel stuff, but the biggest offender to me will always be the Metaton news scene. People don't speak like that, and it really bothers me. There are ways to convey info without it needing to feel like someone's 20,000 word essay they're scrambling to finish. Of course, there are other smaller stuff I noticed, but that's exactly the point. They're small. Like, I'm talking nitpicks, like all the characters having the same voice actor. My final thoughts regarding this is, wow, this is really good. I know I've probably spoiled a lot of you from being able to experience this, but I'd still say it's worth giving it a watch if you like someone taking advantage of the darker aspects of Undertale. Oh, and that's it. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. This hopefully unites the two biggest parts of my audience while I get working on the next video. That was a Discord I'm not editing now, that's funny. Next video should next video should hopefully drop in like a week or so, I don't know. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. If this is the last video I post for the year, I also threw up in my mouth while saying that, I guess. I want to give a big thank you to Pwep, much appreciated, Obscuroni, and Po Fanatic, or Israfel's Fire, and all the other patrons you now see on screen. You should join it too. I like money. Fuck, I just hit my mic really hard. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate you. Anyway, I'll be going to steal presents, obviously. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. See you, lads.